Welcome to this week's episode of Pondering Play and Therapy with me, Philippa. And this week, my amazing guest is Louise Robertson. And she is the founder of the Sustainables Academy, which in 2025 was a nominee for the Earthshot Prize. And she is now a lecturer at Aberdeen University, but started her career in teaching and was a head teacher for a short period of time. So, welcome, Louise, to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm laughing at my background screen. Can you see I've got a wind turbine in my head?
Yes, it looks very colourful. I think that's the most colourful background we've had on the podcast. I love all the little sustainable people all around you, which is amazing. So you have come a long way, but just tell us a little bit about the sustainables because we can see them around you. If you're listening to this on the podcast, they're bright, colourful, animated characters, really, with lots of different. They look a bit spacey to me. You've got goggles and a wind turbine and a wrench. Is that a wrench?
So our whole point of the characters is that they are playful and they're a hook for our young people to get involved in sustainability. And we didn't want heroes. We wanted characters that represented our earth resources. And our focus is the three elements of our globe, so water, air, and land. And basically that's all we've got. So I was watching the NASA, the Artemis journey.
Yeah.
One of the astronauts was looking at the Earth and actually said something, I wish I'd got the quote, but actually said something about looking at the Earth and it's so beautiful and we need to look after it. And basically, those are the three elements. And I thought that was just such a wonderful thing to say because we do need to look after it.
Yeah.
And so the sustainables characters are all there to encourage our young people and adults and the whole communities to care for our globe.
You're hoping, or they are already part of the curriculum, are they, to help children and young people understand one about the impact that we have on the globe, on the world, on the globe, and how they can help to support the growth, what we want the globe to be or the world to be, rather than destroying it.
Yeah, some of the concepts of sustainability and our environment are really hard to understand. And they're hard for adults to understand. There are real complexities in sustainability. One minute you think that a cotton tote bag is the best thing that you can be using, and then you find out you have to use it for 2,700 times before it becomes carbon neutral, and it's been shipped halfway across the world and it's caused desertification and it's not recyclable cotton, etc. I painted a bleak picture there. The complexities are really hard for us as adults. So the idea of having that hook for our young people so that they can say, okay, this character represents water, this character represents earth, this character represents plastics, this one materials, etc. And they link to the curriculum and they link to topic and play and so forth. So they give a hook, an identification for our young people to think about earth resources.
Yeah. So it's more than thinking about, oh, I've recycled my plastic bottle in the recycle bin, or I'm driving electric. That's part of it, but it's making us think about the choices we make, the impact that we are having in our everyday lives, how we can help things flourish, as well as repairing once something's happened. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think it also links to like our philosophy and educational theories that we're encouraging our children to think critically and when we're looking at play and we're looking at sustainability, when we're designing our learning, we're looking at Vygotsky and scaffolding that learning and giving those resources and choices. And choice in play is really important. And also with sustainability, the sensory elements of it are really key. When you're talking about glass making, for instance, one of the earliest sensory forms of play that our children have is sand.
Hmm.
Sand is where we get our glass from, and you would think that sand, you think, oh, we've got loads of sand, it's marvelous, but we've only got the sands are different types of sands, and we've only got certain types that are specialist, say, for lenses in our glasses. So it is complex, but what we're doing is through the play and talking about our resources and caring for things, that we're starting to initiate that value right from a very young age. And we can do that right from a nursery setting.
Okay. And when you talk about choice, what do you mean about that when you talk about choice in play in regards to sustainability? What does that mean?
It's a choice of being, first of all, is I'm going to take the value aspect of it, we that we encourage our children to respect what we have and respect how they use our resources and respect what they do with their things. If you've got a free flow early years setting and children are not necessarily eating at the same time, they've got their rubbish that they have from or they're making something that they're making, that they're choosing, and they're choosing to be careful with what they've done and how much they use and whether they waste it or that sort of aspect. So it's many different.
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking that if they're making, I remember when I was at school, you used to make spaghetti pictures with spaghetti and you'd glue them down. So rather than thinking, okay, I'll just take a massive handful, it's being caught more mindful of maybe I'll probably only need five things of spaghetti and that'll do my picture rather than thinking I'll take a big handful and then I'll chuck the rest in the bin. So
Yeah.
it's been that mindful early on so that by the time they get to our age, then that's just part of their natural life, is that they are aware that what we've got is precious, really, I suppose, is what you're saying. And that like you say, we value it and we're not thinking, oh, that's disposable and we can chuck those grasses away or we can replace them very quickly.
Yes. Yeah. And it's simple things, actually. When you take a child for a walk or you go for a walk, that you don't, that you don't just pick somebody's daffodils, you know what I mean? And you do that through conversation and dialogue and interaction and modeling and all those aspects that are really important in our teaching and learning. And it's about emphasizing those aspects with our young people to think sustainably.
Yeah. So I suppose it's helping the world stay as beautiful as it is and that we're not stripping those resources away at a level that we can do, because we often think we'll see on the TV about the Amazon forest, won't we? And all the deforestation that's going on there. And I guess we'll look at that and think, oh my gosh, that's awful. Why is somebody doing that? Why would you do that? But I guess this is the way I'm understanding it. We can actually be part of that in a very small way, in not picking the bluebells in Bluebell Wood or not taking the seeds or the bird's nest out the tree or whatever it is. So it's not on that massive scale, but it's just on that what actually we can do as an everyday people of valuing the space and the beauty of what we've got around us. Would that be right? Or am
Yeah,
I?
and I think as educators, this is a hard one actually, because I think as educators, we need to make good choices on what we buy and what we bring into our schools and where we source it. There's so much online that is extremely cheap, and the actual journey of those resources and the carbon that is taken to produce them. And I often think when you're buying a very cheap t-shirt in a high street store, you have to look at the production of it, the landscape where it's come from, how far it's traveled, who's manufactured it, how much they've been paid to make your £3 t-shirt. It's a hard one when we're in a sort of and we're in a polycrisis with economics and our resources. But I think that as educators, if we start to make those choices, and that's the important thing about the sustainable, is that we're free.
Right, okay.
That's one thing that I'm really keen on, because as an educator, as a teacher, as a primary teacher, I've spent a fortune over the years resourcing my classroom.
Yeah.
Books and things for the children to use, and many teachers do that. And there are online resources that you subscribe to, but we're getting backing from green companies so that we can offer those resources free to teachers, because I don't believe that there aren't many jobs that you need to go and buy your own tools to do the job. And I really think that educators shouldn't be. So that is one big passion of mine, that everything that you can download from our website is, you have to subscribe, because we like to know where in the world people are accessing our resources, that they are free, so that you can print off our characters and you can have them in your outdoor play area, or you can have them in your classrooms, or you can have them on your light switches. So it's we've got a series of what we call the wasters. They're the naughty ones, and we encourage schools to have, don't be a waster, and leave the tap running, and make sure you turn the light off. Don't be a waster. So we have positive and negatives, because that's the other thing that I believe is that there's a balance in this world. You can't have everything as positive. You have to have a few warnings. We have yellow lines to park. Don't park on the yellow lines, you're going to get a ticket, you're going to get a consequence. And so there are consequences in life, and our teaching and learning needs to provide that as well.
So the characters help to bring to life some of the concepts and the ideas that you're wanting to share with the children. Like you say, the wasters, that's a good one. Switch the light. We need those around our houses, don't we? Especially when you've got teenagers. I've got my son's home from university, and he never shuts the door, and all the heat goes out the back utility room. I need one there. But they are designed to then prompt children and young people to remember to switch the light off, shut the door, or those sorts of things.
Yeah, we're just joining with another not-for-profit. It's actually, not sure whether it's not-for-profit, but it is a community engagement app called One Sky. And this is in June. And what they're doing with that is that they're monitoring people's sustainability. So you can join the app, and then you can, the idea is that it modifies your behavior, because you start to think about how you travel, how you use your energy, what you like as a consumer. And it's for children and adults alike. And the outcome of that app is that it monitors people's changes in behavior, and your score that they have linked with a tree planting organization and a plastic bottle organization. And your actions and your change of sustainability can actually impact the earth, because trees are being planted and plastic bottles are being picked. That's a practical way with this app that's coming out in June, that you can change your behavior. But the sustainables is like an everyday. We've got a mindful team, we've got Harmony, we've got Calm, we've got Opti, and they are all about, because climate mental health is a real thing that stresses young people and adults. You see in we will soon see. We've seen floods, we've seen fires, and this is causing children and young people anxiety. And so we've created these other characters so you can develop a calm area in your learning setting, all about good mental health. And the idea of being a steward and empowering and being able to do something, it's like my granny used to say, collect the pennies and the pounds will soon add up. That's that kind of thing, because sometimes you look at what's going on with our polycrisis and it's just so overwhelming, and you think, how can I do something? So I think the app's going to help, but the idea of the sustainables was to really like empower and make everybody think and change their mindset and become individual change makers, so that it's step by step, those pennies to the pound type thing.
Because it can feel, what is the point of me doing this when? And when you see all this other destruction going on and all these other things going on in the world, you think, wow, what difference does it make if I buy my shirt from, somewhere that's shipped in across, and then I chuck it away when I've worn it next week? But actually, it does make a difference. And it makes a difference, I guess, what you're saying is to our own emotional and mental health. And because we can feel that we've got some efficacy rather than just letting everything happen, that we, in this very small way, have got a little bit of efficacy. So some of the sustainables are supporting with that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and I think that even doing what I do, I've sat in the car and thought, gosh, this is too heavy. It's too heavy. And then I go, no, we've had nearly 500,000 downloads. And when I think that if you've had one teacher that has downloaded one resource and they've used it with 30 kids, on the figures that we've got today, if that was the case in every resource that was downloaded was used, it would be 9 million children that have been accessed already with sustainable resources. So I don't know the full impact of that, but you just hope that what we do, and that if individuals take that on, there will be a difference.
Absolutely. And they are playful characters. So this is, although it's a very serious topic and it can be very heavy and it's got this components of worry that comes along with it, it seems that the sustainables are meant to be playful and engaging and joyful in some ways, that actually for children and for young people, it feels more engaging. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so. And my dream is that the sustainables characters are everywhere, and that they make everybody think it'd be great if local authorities had our characters on their waste bins, so that people could. It would be brilliant if somebody phoned me up and said, let's have these out within the community as well, not just in the school setting. But yeah, the idea is to take away that weight, to have that fun, to have that playful element, to change the way that you look at this quite heavy subject. That you use the word joy, and it is supposed to be joyful, fun, and engaging.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess for young people, those kind of things are easily engaged with, aren't we? We see K-pop, which is they're these characters, aren't they, from this film, and sing, and so many people, because they are bright and engaging and colourful, have all of a sudden got engaged with it. Loads of kids that I'm seeing, they all want K-pop stuff. So there's no reason, is there, if as adults we show them to children, we help them engage with it, that couldn't be the case. That, like you say, that they can't print big stickers and stick them on bins to encourage children and young people to recycle or to help things. And that actually would just make your bin look a bit nice. I wondered if you'd got all those little people when they're lined up on the road, there's all these little characters. I think that would look so nice, wouldn't they? Rather than just your grey bin. That would be just such a nice thing to see in a street.
Yeah, and it's just they are fun, and it is supposed to be light and accessible, and because it's when you talk about food waste, how you think about food waste, and it's a bit grim. Whereas
Yeah.
if you've got Oggy, who's our organic character, or Connie, who's our conservation character, or Polly, our pollinator character, but being involved in food waste and agriculture and that kind of thinking, it just makes it like more fun rather than a lot of rotty smelling compost.
Yeah. I'm just going to ask you one more question about that, and then I just want to think about how you got into that. When you were talking about Polly, then, just for example, so when you're talking about food waste, that is the end. Is part of the sustainables thinking about where it starts? So it starts with the bees or the birds or whatever pollinating the fruit trees, and then so the sustainables is looking at the whole yeah the whole process from where it starts in a flower to where it ends in the bin. Is that right?
Yeah, so what we've done with it, we've actually formed a formal curriculum.
Okay.
And that formal curriculum, we've aligned it. So there's so many curriculum models for sustainability and climate, etc., but they don't work with what's being taught in schools. And if sustainability isn't your main, like for instance, in the English system and the let's take the Four Nations, because we've done it for eight curriculum models. We've got Australia, New Zealand, we've got a form of American because there's variations there. And we've got the Four Nations of the UK with their curriculum models. And we've got IB and we've got International Primary Curriculum. So
Wow.
we've aligned those with those curriculum models. So if we take England, for instance, if you're teaching early years through to Key Stage 4, you can look at our 12 pathways of sustainability. And we've also got the 12 pathways of circular economy, and we've also got 12 pathways of climate mental health.
Yeah.
So you could say you were doing health and well-being in Scotland or PSHE in England. You could take our climate mental health program and you could look at that and look at each of the pathways within the curriculum and sustainability and follow those in progression. So if you were in a primary school setting, for instance, you could take the topic of water, sustainability of water, and you could do something all the way through the school on that with your classes, and you could have a whole school topic. Or if you're doing an individual topic within your curriculum, say for instance you're in Key Stage 1 and you're doing materials, you can take the materials strand and you can look at the progression from, say you're doing it in Key Stage 1, you take it from year 1, 2, and you could overlap it into year 3, and you have that progression, and you've got those curriculum objectives, so that learning is there. And so the same with, you mentioned about Polly with pollination. We encourage people to use the Aqua for water, Polly for pollination, and if you're doing something on conservation or biodiversity, you can use those characters to head it up. But you've got the academic pathway linked to the curriculum and the learning theory for the educators to employ that in their classrooms. And we do very much play-based. It's hard to do play-based in upper primary because people, you've got your SATs tests and you're driven to testing. What I've seen over the 40 years of my teaching as a head teacher for 12 years in England, the changes that I saw and the narrowing of the curriculum was just horrendous.
Yeah.
See, when I first started teaching, we built these beautiful play areas in the classroom and we were free flow in and out, and there was so much freedom, and there isn't that freedom now, but you can create it. And you can create it by, when you're planning your teaching, always having your sustainability head on and thinking, if I'm teaching Tudors, which is a Key Stage 2 topic, how sustainable were the Tudors? What was a Tudor,
Yeah.
what was a Tudor midden compared to a landfill today? How did Romans use water? They used it for their heating systems, and you could look at how you could compare that to the heating systems that we use today. What did you know? And it's what sort of, if you're doing World War One and Two, which is a common topic in Key
Mm.
Stage 1 and 2, that digging for Britain, make, do, amend, all these things are sustainable, and you can bring it into make, do, amend. Am I buying a cheap t-shirt and bunging it in the bin? Will my t-shirt recycle compared to what they were doing, how they recycled and reused in the wars? So there's lots of ways of getting those sustainability into your head. And then there's one it was very popular in the 80s, this theory, but there was a lady called Dorothy Heathcote. I think she was from the Midlands, and she designed something called the Mantle of Expert. And you can, and it's more of like a drama way of creating learning, but you can actually employ the Mantle of Expert. And we've done several models of that on the website, where you can encourage the children to be experts in a field related to sustainability or related to your topic in school. And so you can, and they pretend to be that person, and they write letters, they write policies, they do adverts, all the things that you would do in your literacy, but it's all linked in like a play concept. And you can use our characters for that. So it's all about developing that thinking. And I've totally forgotten what you asked me at the beginning.
That I've forgotten too. I was so interested in what you were saying. That is amazing to think that you can do that. How would parents get involved with that? So that's for teachers that you've got this, which sounds just so super. And just, yeah, I would be so interested in doing that as a child and as a teacher. It's something very different, but fitted into what you need to do. How interesting to look at the world and or those topics in that different way that is going to really make a big impact. But if you're a parent, how do you get involved with this? What is available for you?
So we've got a parent portal on our website, so you can access resources. You can sign up and access the resources if you want to. If you wanted to do something at home in the holidays, it's not just teacher orientated. You can go on and download a colouring sheet or an activity or a quiz, or you could be involved in that way. We produce a newsletter every month, which is actually designed for learners. But the idea is that because so many schools got eco clubs, and
Mm.
telling you, I was same situation where I was put in charge of, because Green Schools has been going years and years. I was at meetings in the 90s in London over green flag schools, and my school in Surrey, that we were doing the green flag eco school program. And you get a bit stuck sometimes because you've got to do your everyday school stuff, but then you've got a club or you've got a committee to run. So what we do is we produce a newsletter, which is ideal for your learners, which empowers them. So we theme each newsletter each month. And so May is our David Attenborough newsletter. And we also link it with the United Nations Articles for Rights and Respect in Schools. So you can get that into your, if you're doing the UN Citizens Awards, you can get that in. We've linked it to the Eco Schools, we've linked it to the Sustainable Development Goals and international days. For instance, like I said, May, we're doing a David Attenborough special, and his birthday is the 8th of May, and we'll do 4-week programs that you can give those to your club or you could do it at home with your children, and you do those activities related to the first week in May is David Attenborough, and I think we've got 22nd of May is Pollination Day. So we've got a week on pollinators and just activities that they can lead with the school, or they could do an assembly, etc., to present it. And then I think towards the end of the week, the month, it's about turtles because it's International Turtle Day. So we try and link it with those international days and empower parents and schools and the young people to lead it themselves and start thinking about it themselves.
And I guess parents can, like you say, go on and get this information, and then they've got it as well. If their children are doing it at school, it'll be available to them. But like you say, during the summer holidays, often it's a long time, 6-7 weeks, isn't it? Finding some other things to do. And I guess your app, really, that One Sky app, parents can help children think about that and put what they're doing, and then being able to say, oh, look, we've got a tree planted now, or we've got these many bottles. Parents can get involved in that way, I'm guessing.
Yeah, if you're walking down the town to do your shopping rather than driving and parking your car, you can add that onto the app. If you're using a reusable bag, you can add that onto the app, and all these add up for points that will plant something. So you've got an outcome. You can see what difference you are making. So that's a real positive. But it's also about parents the pages. One conversation we've had with teachers is that we put a lot of information on there, and they often just want to get the resources. So we're working like mad to put our resources at the top of our pages now, because they want to access those pages. So if they go onto the water page, they want to get to the water resources rather than reading all the sustainability bit. But the website itself is like a magazine. It's an information place as well, so that you, as an adult or a parent, you can be absolutely sure that you're talking about the right thing and using the correct terms, and that you're using the vocabulary, and that you've got the concepts and the points, that you're right in what you're saying. And that actually leads me to talk about, you haven't asked me this, but why I actually started it in the first place. So I was going into schools as a lecturer, as an education lecturer, and seeing student teachers, teaching in classrooms and assessing their lessons for their qualification. And I was going in and I was seeing lots and lots of, because you get mixed ages of people to be teachers, but mainly young people, very keen on sustainability, very keen on recycling. And it was brilliant that they wanted to do this, but they were limited in their knowledge, and they were limited in the resources, and they were limited in what they were actually, the journey that they were creating for the learners. And I was thinking, it's great that you're doing this, but you could do this so much better. And I wanted to empower them as educators to be able to teach the right stuff, the resources and the tools that they need to do the job. And so I went away and I was talking to a couple of people and other educators who went, yeah, actually, I'm not going to sit in the middle of a motorway and stop the traffic because I want to protest about oil. I'm not going to glue myself to a painting, but what I can do is do something that's positive and empowering, and that will be change making, and in my field, which is education, and produce something that people can use to educate themselves and to educate others, and just be a nurse steward. And that idea of being a nurse steward and having a code. So when you start the academic year, you often sit with the children and you talk about, the values that you have in the classroom, and you make up like rules or expectations or values for your learning for the year. And so I'm encouraging teachers to do that with a code, a sustainability code in their class. So in the beginning of the year, you set that up, and the same at home, that you have these codes and values. And so the whole point of it was to I felt that there was a gap that needed to be filled, but I wanted it to be a free gap. I wanted it to
Yeah.
didn't cost. Yeah, so that was the whole point of setting up the sustainables. And
So once you got the concept, how did you go about developing it? Because when we look at it, I know people will be listening on the podcast, so I would really strongly advise you to just go and have a look at the Sustainables website, because actually the characters are colourful and they look amazing. But how did you get to that point? Because I'm guessing from having an idea and thinking I want to do this to creating what you've created is quite a big journey and costly, I imagine, both time and financially.
yeah, yes, both. Emotionally as well.
Yeah.
Got such drive that I wanted to do this. The cost element really does scare me, because it is about, we want to keep it online and you keep trying to get funding, and big organizations go, oh, the education department should be funding this. But we all know that there's not that money for this. And so they're not running to my door saying, we're going to give you lots of money to fund this. The same with trying to get funders. There are lots of people out there that have got green missions, but even with the Earthshot Prize, it's an economic prize. So each of those elements of the Earthshot Prize, they're businesses, and the Earthshot Prize is funding businesses to make a difference in the world. So it's and innovations, and funding those innovations that can be sold and marketed. I could sell the sustainables, but I don't want to, because I want it to be free for educators. And the same with a lot of these businesses that are green, washing powders and things that fit onto your tumble dryers. These are all innovations that are less plastic, but I'm not finding that they're knocking at my door saying, let's support education, which is sad, and there's a massive worry in that respect. But the actual sort of like desire and the design of it and the characters, I work with a designer who's local, and we talk about the characters and what they represent, and we do design them. And there have been questions of, should we be getting young people to design the characters? And actually, I think sometimes you need to give them something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that maybe down the line we'll get young people to design another character or an environment for our characters to live in, etc. But I think that sometimes you need to have adult led. So we've actually had great fun designing them and what they represent and the ages. We've got a series of women that are over grey-haired women. We've got one with a prosthetic. We've got different races. We've got imaginative characters. So we're trying to represent people. And as a woman in my 60s, I find that people want to listen to younger people about sustainability. They want to listen. You always hear, oh, what's the youth voice about this? And I felt, particularly as a woman in my 60s, I didn't feel empowered. I actually felt like I'm back on that landfill. They've chucked me off now because I'm over a certain age. And there are certain things that as a woman, sounds vain. This sounds really vain, but as a young woman, people would look at me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as an older woman, you suddenly realise that you become invisible. I remember going to a bar in Manchester, and I know that in my younger days, I would have been served immediately. But I was being overlooked, and I was being overlooked by younger women and men because I was a woman in my 60s. And it's an actual fact that happens. And so that idea of having that representation of older women in our characters is really important. And that we haven't got any older men yet, but we'll do, because I think that in the employment market, you get to like 50 and you suddenly get to a point where people are then they're not looking in that age bracket, and they're looking and they're going, oh, they might retire in 5 years. I know they're not supposed to, and they're not supposed to say it, but in reality, that's what happens. And I think that, and in a world where I won't get my pension till I'm 67, they might look
Yeah.
again. I could be, my kids could be getting their pensions at 70. So we need to work longer, and we need to have you can't write us off at 50 and 60. And so that was another aspect, sorry, very serious, but another aspect of the women of a certain age start to become faceless. So our characters are really important, and we've got the different abilities and, like I say, different races and ages and genders. We've got children represented, we've got middle-aged people, etc. Sorry, I do go on. You
No, I think that's a really great point, because it is about that representation, isn't it? And actually, I'm in my early mid-50s now, but I do people start to discount a little bit. And like you say, just being around, like, you can become invisible in some ways. So I think it's really, really important. And I think as women, often there's that, do they really know? Do they really? If you're white, middle-aged man, then actually you've got, I guess, a lot more of a voice. And I suppose, like you say, people assume that younger people have I suppose, the sustainability stuff, or because we didn't grow up in that era, maybe that's not where we are. But actually, it's for everybody, isn't it? We
yeah,
all have a responsibility, whether you're 70 or whether you're 7. There's a responsibility that we all have. So I guess something that represents all that, that encourages everybody within that, because I guess that's what the sustainables is doing, is trying to get everybody through education to think about what is our role in our world, and how do we help it from conception to end, really, whether that's food, whether that's what we buy, whether that's where we walk, whatever we do. And we're all in it together, aren't we, really?
yeah,
So we all need to be there.
yeah. And it's interesting because it's lovely to be invited on this podcast, because we see a lot of younger people being invited to, and I feel like I've had a real life experience as well. And I'm still learning. I still get it wrong. I still think I've got value, but we've got a section on the website, Famously Sustainable. And of course, we've got David Attenborough, but we've got Jane Goodall as well. And I remember following what she was doing for years and years. And then we've identified other women and other men in their later years, and young people. We've got we've got Hamza and the other younger men and women that are making a difference globally. So yeah, it's really important to represent that as well.
Absolutely. And so just my last question is, what is your hope for the Sustainables Academy? Where do you hope it's gonna go? What do you
Right.
want for it?
There are some practicalities that I hope for, but the real goal is the Sustainables Academy, the Sustainables themselves are embraced globally by everybody, and that they are a bit like Pokemon are in people's thinking. Everybody recognizes Pikachu. I want everybody to recognize Oggy. I want everyone to recognize Plasto. I want everyone to embrace Connie and Polly. And so that they become part of your life. So the real thing is that I'd like them to represent globally, and that it changes people to be stewards. My actual practicality goals are that we do stay online and we remain free, and that some people will say you need to have a better business plan for that, but you can't rely on hope, but we'll keep plugging away. And I'm hoping that one day somebody will go, okay, this is really good. We love it and we want to support you. In reality terms, I talked about if we were on bins or what have you, it would be brilliant if, say, some of these waste companies said, actually, we'd like to license your characters. So that would actually keep us online. So there are streams, but the actual goal is that we are fun, that we're accessible, that we change make, and that we remain playful, and
Yeah.
that people embed us into their lives. They embed the sustainables, and that you become a sustainable just because of the way that you are in your attitude and the way that you behave.
And those are great. Yeah. Those are great goals, aren't they, really? And I hope that people can support you. So how do people support you? That you've got the website where they can download. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram. We don't have a very good following on Instagram, but it would be really nice. We're actually on Instagram as the Sustainables and the Infinite Earth Academy. That's where we are on Instagram. We are the Sustainables on Facebook. We are on X, but don't use it very often. I just don't feel comfortable now with that platform. And we are on Blue Sky, but we're not very good at posting on there. We don't tend to use TikTok because it doesn't, unless we've been working actually with some university students who've been doing a project on a mini game, and if they are able to produce that, we might be able to get something on TikTok. But really, the website, we've got a long HTTP, and it is www.thesustainables with an S academy.org, and you can find us there and
That's
just
great. I will put a link to the website, Instagram, and Facebook at the end of this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, it will be in the bio, so just have a look on there.
Oh, we've got a YouTube actually. We've got a YouTube, and what we are going to try and do is get people who would be keen to read stories, sustainability stories, and then we can edit them and put them on YouTube. And we'd really like to have some famous people do that with us, but we haven't got people interested yet. But that we have got a YouTube, and it is the Sustainables Academy on YouTube. And then, of course, the Sky One app is coming out, which we are supporting. It's not our app, but we're supporting it and encouraging people to use and change their behaviour. That's coming out in June.
Oh, that's fantastic. I will put a link to all those, like I say, so people can just click on them.
Actually, I think it's One Sky. I think I've said Sky
Yeah,
One.
One Sky. You did,
One
yeah.
Sky, and it's we're not the TV channel.
Yeah. Yeah, you talked about it earlier. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Louise. That was so great. And I just encourage all our listeners to go and have a look, to just go and support you and get it out there, really, if we can.
We have got a donate button on the website, but I need just to make sure that it links properly, which isn't a good thing, but I will double check. But thank you so much for inviting me. I just love talking about the sustainables. It's nice to talk to other people because my husband won't listen anymore because he's sick to it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.